The dust of Redemption Gulch tasted like regret and cheap whiskey. It was a town that clung to the side of a sun-scorched mesa like a stubborn burr on a saddle blanket, and tonight it was holding its breath. Inside the Swingin' Spur Saloon, the air was thick with the smell of stale beer, sweat, and the low hum of trouble brewing. That trouble had a name, Jedediah Jed Stone. Jed was 3 sheets to the wind and twice as loud. He was a big man, built like a brick outhouse with a temper to match. And when he'd been drinking, he had a nasty habit of thinking he was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. He'd been bragging for an hour, his voice a gravelly roar that drowned out the out-of-tune piano. He'd wrestled a grizzly, stared down a stampede, and apparently single-handedly won a skirmish that history had conveniently forgotten. The locals just nodded along, nursing their drinks, knowing the best way to deal with a storm was to let it blow itself out. But then the saloon door swung open, letting in a slice of the bruised purple twilight and a man who seemed to be carved from it. He was of average height, lean, and moved with a quiet grace that was more unsettling than Jed's blustering. He wore a dusty black duster, and his face was all sharp angles and shadows under the brim of a worn hat. He didn't look at anyone, just made his way to the bar and ordered a water. Jed's eyes, blurry and mean, landed on the newcomer. The quiet man was an affront to his boisterous mood. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," Jed slurred, loud enough for the whole saloon to hear. "A fella who drinks water. You lost, little dove, or did your mama tell you to stay away from the strong stuff?" The stranger didn't turn. He simply took a sip of his water, his back ramrod straight. The bartender, a weary man named Silas, shot Jed a warning look. But it was like trying to warn a boulder it was about to roll downhill. Jed slid off his stool, swaggering over to the stranger. He was close enough now that the stranger could probably smell the sour mash on his breath. "I'm talking to you, Shadow Walker. Cat got your tongue?" He poked the stranger in the shoulder. It was a mighty forceful jab. The man in black finally turned his head, just enough to show a pair of eyes as pale and cold as a winter sky. "I'd advise you to move your hand," he said, his voice low and calm, yet it cut through the saloon's noise like a razor. The quiet intensity only seemed to fuel Jed's drunken rage. He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Advise me? I'll advise you to get on your knees and apologize for looking at me sideways." He shoved the man again, harder this time. That was the last mistake Jedediah Stone would make that night. It happened so fast it was almost a blur. The stranger didn't seem to move, but suddenly Jed was on his back on the floor, gasping for air, his own momentum used against him. The stranger stood over him, not even breathing hard. He hadn't drawn a weapon. He hadn't even raised his voice. He had just moved. The silence in the saloon was absolute. The piano player's hands hovered over the keys, frozen. Jed, on the floor, stared up in a mixture of shock and dawning sobriety. The 10-foot-tall, bulletproof man he'd been a minute ago had vanished, replaced by a drunk with a sore back and a sudden, profound understanding of his own mortality. The stranger looked down at Jed, his expression unreadable. "Some men carry their strength on the outside, loud and heavy for all to see," he said, his voice still quiet but now filling the entire room. "Others carry it on the inside. It's quiet. You don't say it until it's too late. You should learn the difference." He adjusted his duster, turned back to the bar, and placed a coin down for the water. He didn't look at Jed again. He didn't need to. The point had been made. He walked back to the doors, every eye in the place following him. As he pushed them open, he paused for a moment, looking out into the night. Silas the bartender finally found his voice. "Hey, mister, we never did get your name." The stranger glanced back over his shoulder, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "It's Wyatt," he said, and then he was gone. swallowed by the darkness, leaving behind a humbled drunk, a stunned saloon, and a story that would be told in Redemption Gulch for years to come. A story about the night a loudmouthed cowboy learned that the most dangerous man in the room is often the one you hear the least. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this trip back to the Old West, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. We'll see you in the next one.